course, welcome to a Preakness Day 149. A wonderfully done job for our national anthem. But to just segue, what a race in the Black Eyed Susan yesterday.
Oh, the Black Eyed Susan was a sensational race, and we had a really worthy winner. Gunsong looked tremendous in the stretch that day. All in all, it was a really tremendous day, but it was Cherie DeVaux's day. Three wins, 3 stakes wins, and Pyrenees with a super impressive rallying effort in the Pimlico Special. That was some exciting stuff.
It was very exciting stuff, and apologies to everybody. He's just so infamous around here in Maryland. Dan Illman with me here on Today at the Races. We're going to get you warmed up here for Preakness 149, and it is a day for handicapping because we are still on the turf.
Yes.
Weather's going to clear up this afternoon eventually.
Fingers crossed.
Yep, so here we are. Let's get right into it. Let's talk about this first leg of this early pick 5 in this maiden special weight. Also starts that first Grand 3. I wanted to remind you guys of that first Grand 3. If you can pick the top 4 finishers in every race, including the Preakness, the Triple Crown, or the California Crown, and the Pegasus World Cup, you're up for $5 million. Of course, again, our early pick 5 starts here in this maiden special weight, going 5 furlongs on the turf for the 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. Dan, we have your top selection in the number 4, Master of Malice. This is going to be in the barn of Brittany and Russell and Sheldon Russell rides.
We haven't seen this guy in a long time. He has raced once in his career. That was back in June. It was on the main track. He ran really well behind a runaway winner in a race that produced a couple of next out winners, and Brittany's given this horse plenty of time. There's not a ton of turf pedigree here, but I think there's enough. But I am concerned. This turf course is taking a lot of rain right now. It was good yesterday. A lot of the horsemen I talked to thought it was playing more towards soft. Maybe you got to be fit and not coming off of such a long layoff to be ready for a race like this.
Right.
But I just think Master of Malice is an interesting horse for Brittany with some solid works.
No, and that's exactly it. I was actually talking to Johnny yesterday, and I said, is there a little bit of cut? He said there's a little bit of cut, but it's not as bad as everybody was thinking. So, But now with the rain, kind of all systems go there. You go with the 3 underneath in Sig for Justin Riviera, a nice price, 10-1 morning line with the blinkers on. Now 9-1 with the blinkers off with Jonathan Mendoza.
Well, sometimes, you just can't beat speed in these 5 furlong turf races. And there's one thing we know about Sig. He's got plenty of early speed. Now, the stamina hasn't exactly been there in his races. But as you mentioned, he's a horse that usually offers value. And in a race like this, on a day like this, on a course like this, if he shows speed and handles it, he might be gone.
Why not? You also go with the number 1. Let's just talk quickly about Irish Heartbeat. Your 6-5 favorite right now with the blinkers on, Louis Sias for Michael Maker.
Just a super logical horse in this race. He ran just fine in his career debut at Gulfstream Sprinting. He kind of got bumped around early, locked in the pocket behind a runaway winner. And last time out, I'm just not sure that synthetic surface is what he wants to do. Breaking from the rail with blinkers on, he's going to show some tactical speed. I expect him to work out a similar trip as his debut. And if he runs that 71 buyer, he's going to be real tough.
There we have it. 4-3-1-10 from Dan the Man Illman here today on the Today at the Races. Let's go to race number 2. That does start our early pick 4 in this allowance, also on the turf, but this time it's a 1 16 for the 3-year-olds and up. Let's talk about your top selection in Shaloinian. I'm so glad you just went for it with this one on top for Jamie Ness. Jamie Rodriguez, third career turf try.
Yeah, it's interesting that Jamie reclaimed this horse from Lacey Gaudette last time out and decided, I'm going to keep him on the turf. He's run well in both starts on the grass. The first one was at Pimlico here last year. He actually finished first and was disqualified. And last time out, I thought ran really well. He got bumped at the start. He was sort of 3 wide in mid-pack, split horses at the half-mile pole and really tried to get into the race. And he finished okay with a really nice gallop out. He was entered yesterday on dirt, and we know that this guy's proven on dirt. The fact that Jamie scratches to runs here tells me something.
Absolutely. I see that the same way. Just go ahead and take a stab on this softer turf here today. Talking about the number 2 to the inside is Porcarolas for Graham Motion. John Velasquez, of course, having a wonderful day yesterday, hoping to continue that success, but handled that good surface, no problem, last time out at Keeneland.
And that could be really key over this wet ground today. Plus, the fact that he is all upside. He's only started twice. That last race was really good to be beaten only a neck. I love his tactical speed. In so many ways, he's the horse to beat.
He is, which is why I have him on top. Let's we go the same way, 8-2-4-5. Anything really quick breakwater for Shug McGahee with Flavian Pratt, and then of course we have to include the Jack Fisher, the St. John's with Forrest Boyce on top.
St. John's ran really well last time out with a good trip. He may not get that sort of ground-saving pocket trip here, but I think he's going to handle the wet going. As for breakwater, he probably needed his last race. It was his first start off of a lengthy layoff. He ran into a sharp horse that came back and won at Tampa with an 83 buyer speed figure. He's still a little bit green. He didn't change leads in that last race, but Shug's horses often improve with more maturity.
Exactly. That's all we can expect as Dan Illman goes 8-2-4-5 there in race number 2. Race number 3, we are on the dirt. Well, we're on an off track. It's either going to be muddy or sloppy in this allowance, going 3/4 of a mile on the dirt for the 3-year-olds and up. You take a stab at the number 7. Love this. Nasty Habit. Anthony Ferrier, Sheldon Russell stays on here.
Well, I won't be surprised if Baffert's Miramati just runs right off the screen here, off the layoff. It just seems like even though he's a maiden, this is a great spot for him off the layoff.
Right.
But it is a 251-day layoff, and he's going to be dealing with a wet track for the first time in his career.
Yes.
Frankie Dettori picks up the mount today on Miramati. Nasty Habit to me is a little bit interesting because if you look at his speed figures, 2 and 3 starts back here in respectable 86 numbers. And the race at Parks, he was chasing a lone pace setter who looked home free, and he gamely wore him down. In his last race, I think he was just a little bit too patiently ridden. He saved ground at the back in a race that was won in gate-to-wire fashion. He was running on at the end. Note that he was listed as a vet scratch at Thistledown, of all places, on April 30th.
But that doesn't exactly surprise me. I think this is a type of move that Ferrier does as far as Thistledown, Mountaineer, Charlestown, the Turfway Park. I'm not surprised about either. Just that's something that is just very niche Anthony Ferrier. So don't be too concerned about that vet scratch. I'm not putting too much stock into it. So I like that you have that one on top. Underneath, you have the number 5 Magic Express, Brittany Russell, Louis Saez. They teamed up well for a nice winner earlier on the card yesterday.
Certainly did, and I think this horse looked really good winning at Aqueduct in his second lifetime start. The problem is he's run 3 times. The other 2 times were on wet tracks, and I'm not sure he really handled the wet tracks as well as he handled the dry, especially last time at Keeneland. Now, it was a speed-favoring track. He was wired that day in a slow-paced race, but I just thought he was kind of struggling along over that wet going. He was facing a good field. The runner-up came back to hit the board with a 92 buyer at Churchill Downs.
Well, there we have it. There's great underneath. Dan, I just wanted to talk about when Love takes over, Ray Handel, Flavian Pratt. How do you think this one, by the figures, by the black and white, should maybe handle things okay today?
I think he might be able to handle things okay because off the claim last time out, he ran away and hid from the field. He sure didn't look like a 10-to-1 shot that day. He got up close to the pace and he drove home. There are some other speeds in here, however. Horses like Prado Road, Magic Express, even Great Heavens has speed. I would expect Miramati to show speed from the rail as well. So when Love takes over is stepping up in class and might be facing a really tough pace scenario.
Yeah, so we'll see how he can handle it. Good one to have underneath for Dan Illman as he goes 7-1-5-2 in race number 3. Let's start the stakes action here in race number 4 with the Ski Pat Stakes. Interesting, fun race here. 3/4 of a mile on the dirt for the girls 3 and up. You and I both go with a Disco Evil. Let's take a look at the Prima Nota last time out here at Laurel Park.
The Prima Nota last time out came right on the heels of the Barbara Fritzsche race where Disco Ebo worked hard on a fast pace going 7 furlongs. They cut her back to 6. She got a much easier lead this time out. And this is what happens when Disco Ebo gets an easy lead. She is able to sprint on home and win. Now, some folks might say, listen, she hasn't run back to those gaudy buyer speed figures of 2023. Maybe she's not the same mare she was when she was earning those figures, but she is fast, and I think she's faster than the other potential speed in here, the number 2 Lake Frost. If Disco Ebo gets loose, she loves a wet track, I think she'll be tough to reel in.
Exactly. I just think she's going to really soar here today. Talking about the number 4 in Apple Picker for Brittany and Sheldon Russell, was 7-5 morning line. Could on the fast track be an easy grab, but today, what do you make of this?
Well, she was very game to win the Fritzsche. She did have everything go her own way from a pace standpoint. Disco Ebo was carving out fast and pressured fractions. Apple Picker came and ran her over. Last time out, don't hold that race against her. Grade 3 action in New York. Shida Booty came back to run 3rd in the Grade 2 Ruffian. She fits really well with these horses, but she's a late runner. She needs someone to soften up Disco Ebo a la the Barbara Fritchie.
The dam won first out on an off-going sloppy seal on a wet track, and the dam's half siblings are 5 for 14 on a wet surface. So to add to that, let's talk about the number 7 in Swall. Phil D'Amato, Flavian Pratt. Interesting choice here. I could see it definitely, especially with some. What do you make of these synthetic transferring over to a track like today?
I really don't mind it at all, especially when you see that Ghost Sapper as the sire. He is a sensational wet track stallion. And while Swall has only raced once on dirt and it resulted in a 5th place finish, I think she ran a lot better than that. She didn't break very well. She had to rush up into a fast pace. She was on a hard chase on the turn, and then she understandably tired. Just remember, the top 3 finishers of that race were 7th, 8th, and 10th after the opening quarter. She was up close to a fast pace and still hung in there. This time, expect her to be patiently ridden. She's on the outside, no mud kicked in her face. She's a dangerous stalking threat.
Absolutely. Getting the right trip for her is key in race number 4 in this ski pat. In the number 2, just wanted to touch, you touched on Late Frost, but yeah, those are your picks. There we go. 3, 4, 7, 2. Anything else to add on Late Frost?
Late Frost is a horse that has 1 figure on her page, and that was over a wet, fast track in the Charlestown Oaks. Now, that was a 2-turn race, but she easily outran her 96-1 odds. She, I think, is at her best when she goes to the front. Is she as fast as Disco Ebo? That's the key to the race.
Yep, we'll find out. In race number 4 in the ski pad, that post time is going to be about 12:16, 12:15. So key in on that. Race number 5, we're back on the turf in a maiden special weight, going 5 furlongs for the 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. Dan, you guys have a little bit of the same things going on. Let's talk about your top selection in Up For It for Michael Matz, J-Ron Barbosa. I could see why you put this horse on top.
A little bit of a reach, maybe, because she's already had 7 chances and hasn't broken through. But her last race she was in against males, and it just didn't work out for her. The 4th place finisher came back to graduate with a 69 buyer. Her race against Fillies and Mares 2 starts back was pretty good, where she ran into a horse that came back to run second in a first-level allowance with a 77 buyer. She's kept good company. The issue that I have with Up For It is this. Sometimes she's a little bit slow from the gate, going 5 on the turf. She's got to get out of there a little bit better, but I think the value could be there. I think Barbosa is going to fit this horse nicely.
That I agree with. Barbosa and Michael Matz, they do team up well together on the turf. 6 for 25 as of lately on the turf together. Marion Cross for Graham Motion, Georgie Ruiz, there's another great combination there. Why not with this filly? I trust this. I trust Graham on a soft track.
Certainly. This horse is probably the horse to beat based on her most recent turf run 2 starts back, where she easily exceeded the buyer par for this level. Now, they ran her in a synthetic race last time out, and she ran okay. I thought the trip was good. She was down inside. The rail opened up. She shot on through, and she got a little bit tired. The only concern is this. I usually dislike playing horses that cut back so substantially on turf. This horse is cutting back from 1 1/16 to 5, so she better break quickly lest she be outrun early.
Right. So I took a stab just because of the placement. When in that certain type of placement that she's had in these, I think that comes well enough for something that's going to come from off of the pace going short. So that's just kind of how I see that playing out. And I see Georgie riding it very well.
And it also helps if you might have the best horse.
Also might help as well. Let's talk about the number 11 in Lena Magneta. Lori Testerman, blinkers on, Al Delgado, hometown hero.
Here's a little bit of a sleeper for the hometown hero. Haven't seen this horse in a while. The last time she stepped on dirt, she faced 4 next down winners. That was a really quality maiden race. She showed speed that day. The runner-up is now stakes placed on the dirt. That was a quality group. I'm not interested in those 2 subsequent dirt starts. She's a turf filly getting blinkers for the first time. Maybe she'll sow some early gas. And we do have an interesting stat, Callie, on the number 4, Moda Rosa, who's making her first start on the turf for trainer Riley Mott. She's a half-sister to Roses for Deborah, who is a graded stakes winner on the turf. Once Christophe Clement moved this horse from synthetic to turf, she really perked up. Maybe Moda Rosa will do it today, Lasix on.
And that's kind of what I picked up. I'm just curious. I'm just a little leery of the first-time Lasix. It's always, you never know how they're going to react to it. So there we have it. 8-2-11-7 for Dan Illman with a little touch, a little spice on the number 4 underneath. Let's go ahead and get back to some stakes action in race number 6 in the grade 3 Chick Lang, going 3/4 of a mile on the dirt for the straight 3-year-olds. Dan, you have the number 2 on top. Cats by 5. Steve Asmussen, Luis Saez, of course.
I'm hoping for a barbecue up front because I think that's what this colt needs. He's sort of a late-running sprinter, and last time out he ran in the Bachelor, a race controlled by front runners, and he was still staying on well to be third. You have a horse with tremendous speed in this race in the 6th Frost Free. In a blink of an eye, he could be clear. Or the number 1, Mr. Skylight, who went gate to wire last time out, pushes him. That's the key to the race. Does the 1 push the 6? If not, the 6 might be gone. If he does, it sets things off for horses like the 2 Kents by 5 and a horse like the 7 Catahoula Moon, who is very versatile.
Very versatile, and that's a horse that I kind of went for the horse that showing improvement on the momentum. Again, I think the 1 is on. There are plenty of horses here on the momentum, but that one, what I've seen locally, I've been really impressed with. Also, your number 1, Mr. Skylight, the dam, only try on a wet track was indeed a winner. So to add to that, I think there's a lot. Market Street, D. Wayne Lucas, Johnny Velasquez on, also in the Bachelor last time out.
In the Bachelor last time out and didn't perform as well. So was it the step up in class and was it the wet track? Because the race 2 starts back. That was a really good-looking effort in a first-level allowance for Mr. Lucas. It looked like Market Street might finally have found what he wanted to do, which was sprinting. I just wonder if it's sprinting on faster.
You know what I think? I think the horse just bounced. Ran
maybe
so hard in that effort on the 5th of April. I think, especially since that horse had not seen easy daylight in a while. So that's when you get a pattern change like that, they can react a certain way afterwards. So we'll see how that wraps up there in the Chick Lang at 2-6-5-1 for Dan Illman. And let's go ahead to race number 7. Of course, in the Grade 3, Gallorette stays a mile and 16th on the turf for these girls 3 and up. Let's talk about your top selection in the number 7. You stick with Fluffy Socks here for Jad Brown, Irad Ortiz.
I do. She's just getting a lot of class relief, isn't she?
Yes,
she's been running
absolutely.
in Grade 1s and Grade 2s. In that last race, the Jenny Wiley, she simply had no chance. She was wired in a slow-paced race that was won by her stablemate Butte Cachet. There was just no speed for her to run at. She can be a little bit closer if necessary. She has been had in her career more seconds than wins, and maybe that's something to consider at a short price. But I think maybe she's found the right field. I do think your horse, Callie, is very, very interesting. 5 Towns, and we got a video to show.
We're going to take a look at the Dahlia from the last effort out. While that was on a firm track, this horse has had some experience on some softer fields back in England. But man, what a push button ride here
at the
in the Dahlia.
3/16 pole, Callie, you're absolutely right. She was just swinging and she's crying out for room, and we were just standing by the winner's circle saying, if she gets out, she wins.
Yes.
And Jorge got her out. He knows what he's doing. She flew home. You might get a price because that buyer speed figure came back really light.
Yes.
I think she's a lot better than that.
I agree, which is why, I think with Fluffy Socks, the 2nd, the 3rd, it's not necessarily nice. It's just sometimes what happens on the turf.
Right.
She's just had plenty where she's missed the bob. So for me, we're going to be getting a lot of money due to the fact that she gets a little bit of help here today. So I tried to see what kind of price I can get for 5 Towns. It's 6-1 morning line. We'll see what happens there. Let's talk about Tequilera for Michael Matz, J-Ron Barbosa. I do like this filly. Just got a little tired. Back on the shelf, she comes back on a good surface, a softer track here for the first time for 2024.
And perhaps most importantly for her, there's a key scratch in the 2 Dana's Beauty, who might have been the speed. Tequilera has shown a lot of early speed in her career. I think she actually improved when she learned to rate and finish last year, but maybe they'll revert to the speedy tactics because if she gets loose on this course and some of the other girls behind her don't like it, she might be able to sprint on home at a price. There's always been a hint of ability. I wasn't sure if she could prove it in a graded stakes race, but maybe this is the spot.
I think no, and that's exactly it. Just looking at there's potential speed in this race, but there's nothing that's shown a lot of experience, race after race after race with that kind of go. The number 3 that you have underneath is Blissful, Cherie DeVoe.
Can't go wrong.
I'm surprised you didn't have this one on top. It's hard to go put this one on top against Fluffy Socks.
The way Blissful, though, and Cherie DeVoe's going, it's tough to pick against any of her horses.
Yes.
Plus, this mare has speed. She's versatile. She ran so well 2 starts back from off the lead. They put her on the pace last time out, basically by default. I think Brian Hernandez usually did the right thing. No one wanted to go. He took the lead with Blissful. It might be a similar situation here, and the way Cherie's going, this mare is sharp.
No, absolutely. That trip is either gonna happen for Blissful or Tequilera, I I think, here today. So talking about the number 9, Ascendancy, Juan Hernandez takes the call here.
Kind of an interesting horse, Callie. A horse that's been all over the place. Southern California, ran at Churchill Downs last time out in that Distaff Turf Mile. I thought her trip was okay. She was facing a really nice Chad Brown trainee in Chili Flag, who would likely be favored in this race. So I'm willing to give her one more chance at a price. I'm curious to see if she's this good.
Nope, this horse caught my attention, but I said, ooh, is this one traveling? So I'm glad you put this one to get some attention for a little bit of a price. 20-1 morning line as Dan Illman goes 7.539 in the Grade 3 Gallorette. We will be right back after this commercial break. And we're back in stakes action here today again with Dan Illman with Today at the Races in the Grade 3 Maryland Sprint, going 3/4 of a mile for the 3-year-olds and up. Starts the Rainbow Pick 6. Of course, I don't have a ticket just yet. I will have a ticket for you later this afternoon, but $85,870 carryover, of course, and this is a very interesting race that we have going on here. Very fun race, especially in these conditions, Dan.
Oh, especially in these conditions. You have so many things that could happen from a speed standpoint. Is Super Chow, a horse that showed so much promise over a wet track this winter in New York, going to just relish this surface and run them off their feet? Is Prevalence going to go after Super Chow early? And then what do we get from these two? Coastal Mission and Prince of Jericho, who threw it down in the Frank Whiteley last time out. Prince of Jericho did a lot of dirty work on the lead. Coastal Mission got a big seam at the top of the stretch, and all through the stretch it looked like Prince of Jericho was going to say no, 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 and at the very last moment Coastal Mission plucked victory from the jaws of defeat.
Oh, I love that. This one, of course, you've got, just talking to Jeff after that race, he specifically targeted for the Frank Whiteley, even running those horses in those New York races. So it was an interesting way to campaign and kind of set up things here today. And he did have this horse in mind after he won the Frank Whiteley. So I look at how this horse is on an off go. The easy grab is the Russell Road, but that's his home track. You have to expect a good standing out of him. So I looked at how he traveled in the stymie. He was totally enjoying himself in this, and he was basically winning the race until the race just got too long for him. So he is going to eat this track up here today.
But I wonder if 6 is a little sharp for him, and now we turn the tables. The Whiteley was 7, now we turn back to 6. Maybe an advantage for Prince of Jericho, who last time was pushing the pace, and this time I think is going to stalk and let Prevalence and Super Chow battle. Maybe he sits the garden spot for Brittany and Sheldon.
And I could see that. I could definitely see that. To me, I'm trying to figure out what kind of prices are going to be coming. I'm trying to see what kind of sequence I can get. So I absolutely respect Prince of Jericho in your 1-2 selection. You mentioned, of course, Super Chow. This one is a hard horse to just turn away.
He is a hard horse to turn away. He's run here at Pimlico. Javier Castellano picks up the mount today. And after winning those 2 races over wet tracks, is there really a shame to lose to Post Time?
No.
No. Post Time came back and missed by this much in the Westchester with a 94 buyer, and that race was at 7 as well. I like Super Chow cutting back to 6. Keep in mind, though, if he has the lead in the stretch and he starts to get drifty, fans start screaming, wire, wire. Right. Where's the wire?
Right, and fair enough, and that is what I picked up. Talking about Prevalence, the Commonwealth might have propelled her. If things start, this is what, race 8. Things might start. This rain might go away in case things start drying up. We get a sealed dry air. This gelding is going to absolutely love it.
He looked like in 2022 when he won the Commonwealth over that wet track that he was going to be a major force going 7 furlongs in a mile. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. But last time out, the light bulb went on. Was it Keeneland? Does he just simply love that track? Maybe. I just think they figured it out. Get aggressive with him. I think he's going to try to make Super Chow work in the early part of this race. And if this pace gets hot, that could help Coastal Mission even at this sharper distance, because he might be out sprinted early, but they could come back to him.
And that's the way it might. It's so I'm so excited for this race. This
Great
actually
race.
next great race. I'm really looking forward to it. So 1-6-3-2 all across Dan and I. There. Let's go ahead to the James Murphy. Also starts the late pick 4. Samantha Perry's got a ticket for us. She goes 7, 10, 11 here in this opener. With I don't have her top selections just yet coming in, but you and I go a completely different direction, which is going to be that's a fun way to start things off. 7, 10, 11 there in our first leg. Race at number 10, singles on Imperial Gun. That's something that you and I both definitely agree with. That's an easy grab, I think, and a very secure grab for Imperial Gun in the number 10. 2, 4, 12 in race 11 in the Jim McKay Turf State Sprint with the number 2. Karotari, the number 4, Midday Image. Interesting at 20-1. That's bold. I like that. And then 12, Beer Can Man 5-2 on this a bit of a softer ground turf that we're going to be having later today. Race number 12 in the dinner party. She goes 2 deep with the 5 and the 9. Running B, fantastic again. I like both of those choices. And in race 13, listen, I like the way she just plays it safe with the 3, 5, 8, 9. I really do think that race is kind of a little more open than one would expect for the Grade 1 Preakness. A $36 ticket for Samantha Perry. And let's go ahead as I scroll back and get back to my placement that starts this off in race number 9 in the James Murphy, going a mile on the turf for the 3-year-olds. You and I both end up on the number 12. This is going to be full Meno for Arnaud Delacour on the outside with Flavian Pratt and the blinkers on as well.
Fulmineo is a horse. I talked to Arnaud Delacour earlier this week, and he said he wants to get the blinkers on because he needs to get this horse closer to the pace. We've seen in a lot of his races, he falls behind, he makes a run, and he falls a little bit short. Maybe the blinkers will sharpen him up. I got to look at the video of his last workout with blinkers. He seemed to be moving really comfortably in them. I think he's going to appreciate it. And Arnaud thinks he's going to handle a wet turf course, which we're definitely going to be getting.
Yes.
His last race was good. He ran against older horses. The winner of that race is a 5-year-old who got loose on the lead in a slow-paced race. And Fulmineo got a good inside-out closer's trip, but just couldn't make up the difference in a race with a pace that slow. We'll see what we get from a pace standpoint here. I think there's going to be a lot more for him to run at. I think it's about time for him to start fulfilling his potential.
There we have it. Going to the number 7 to the inside. This is going to be Crystal Quest. Mike Trombetta, Javier Castellano. I like the little bit. I like the turf, and then I like the synthetic and the bounce back and forth. That makes me a little bit more confident that this one's going to handle this type of track today.
Just looks like he's coming into his own. His last 3 races have been super impressive. Michael, when I talked to him earlier this week, just said in his debut he was green. He didn't know what he was doing. They took him back. They turned the screws on him, got to really work on him. He's proud of the team because look at the results.
Right.
3 consecutive wins. 2 against Florida bred, so this is a big step up in class, but I like his tactical speed. And the horse he beat last time out, the runner-up, came right back to win a first-level allowance at Gulfstream, 77 Buyer.
Okay, there we have it. Dan the Man with the numbers there in the number 10 as well in Abrumar for Safi Joseph, Irad Ortiz. Safi, of course, excuse me, winning the Grade 3 Miss Preakness, and of course trying to keep things going in the winning ways.
This fellow won 3 in a row, didn't he? Including a $200,000 stakes race at Gulfstream Park, and he showed speed and he showed versatility to rate from off the pace in his prior starts. He just didn't run very well last time out in the American turf. Maybe it was the wet turf course. Maybe it was a lousy outside post position. I'm curious to see what sort of tactics they're going to use. I do like that Irad Ortiz picked something out, and I think maybe Irad is going to kind of sit back and make one run like they did when this horse won his maiden.
Okay, fair enough. You also go with another local horse underneath in Takayo for Rudy Sanchez Solomon Luis, but attracts the ride of Luis Saez like these last couple of goes.
He's a little bit of a reach. His big win came in the Dania Beach 3 starts back, a race where Jorge Ruiz just put him on the lead and put everybody to sleep, and he sprinted on home. I will say this, his race in the Kitten's Joy was a lot better because they made him go faster early, and he still hung on and was only beaten 2 lengths. Last time out, he did not get close to the lead. It didn't work out. I think they're going to try to send and sit off Speedy Ness, who's going to live up to his name by going to the front.
I agree with that. I can't wait to see how that's going to shake down as Dan goes 12, 7, 10, 11 there in the James Murphy. Let's go to race at number 10. That is the Sir Barton, of course, sponsored by Brandon and Diana Perry to benefit the TAA, and a mile and 16. Straight 3-year-olds. Dan, you and I both have Imperial Gun. This is also Samantha Perry's single on her ticket. We're taking a look at the effort last time out in the stake at Oaklawn.
This is the Bathhouse Rose Stakes. An Imperial Gun I thought ran really well. He was a little bit eager in the early part of this two-turn event. Then he got to the outside. He's going to come with a strong run. Just look at this try. It looks like maybe he's going to lose a length. 2 lengths. He refuses to quit behind Informed Patriot, who I think is really good, and he makes this close at the wire. So I think Imperial Gun's a hard-trying horse, and he's relatively tactical. There's a big scratch in this race with Tuscan Sky, the number 8, being out. Not only would he have been one of the favorites based on his form, but he had early speed in a race without much pace. I like that Joel Rosario used Imperial Gun's speed last time out, and I think he can get close to the pace with this horse here.
I think on top of that, the off-going is just going to crank that factor up just a little bit. So especially that outside, I think it's going to be a huge help here for Imperial Gun. Number 5 underneath is Corporate Power. Sugar McGahee, Javier Castellano with the blinkers on.
This horse earned a 90 Beyer speed figure last time out, and he did it over a sloppy track. I'm not sure if he really loved the slop, but I'm not sure if he hated it as well, running a 90 Beyer speed figure. I talked to Shug earlier this week, and he said he's putting the blinkers on because this guy's a little bit lazy. And it showed last time out because he was going to be ridden along, and then he was changing back to his left lead in the stretch. So maybe the blinkers get him to focus a little more.
No, absolutely. Those are my notes as well. I just said needs to be ridden along the entire race. Don't worry if you see it, but I think, as you mentioned, the blinkers on is going to tighten things up as well. Ghoul's Gold for Kenny McPeak, Brian Hernandez Jr., 8-1 morning line.
I don't mind a Kenny McPeak, Brian Hernandez 3-year-old that's sired by Golden Sense. I don't mind it. I've heard about horses like that. I think they seem to do very, very well, especially on wet tracks. Gould's Gold, though, ran fine last time out in the Bathhouse Row. He was the one that finished 3rd in the video we showed you. I think he's slowly moving forward, and I think Kenny's been racing himself back into his best form. 3rd start off the layoff. Maybe we'll see that from Gould's Gold here.
8 for 54 for Kenny, 3rd off the layoff as of lately. Just a little bit of a barn trend there. So still going in the right direction as far as the barn goes. The number 2 underneath is Real Macho. Just needing an update on the rider. We'll get
Flavian Pratt.
Perfect. Flavian Pratt here today. Last time effort in the Florida Derby, Fountain of Youth. I think it's a little bit of just a touch of help here. Yeah,
he needs to be a little bit of class relief because he actually looked really good 3 starts back when he ran down a highly touted horse named Born Noble to win that day. He was 5-1 in the Fountain of Youth against Dormac. Now that was a scratch-infused race. Didn't run that great. Didn't run that great in the Florida Derby against 2-year-old champion Fierceness. You're right, Callie. This is class relief. He might love it.
Absolutely. 10-5-6-2 for Dan Illman in the Sir Barton. Let's go to race number 11 in the Jim McKay Turf Sprint, going 5 furlongs on the turf for the 3-year-olds. This is always a fun race for me. You go with Boats of Rockin' on top. This is a pick that I like for Brandon Culp. Jamie Rodriguez takes the call. I like that they're taking a stab with this, and we haven't seen this horse on a soft turf in quite a while.
He has run well on wet turf courses in the past, but again, as I said earlier on, this course might be very testing and soft, so it's going to be up for Brandon Culp to have this guy ready to go and be at maximum fitness off the layoff. This horse ran just fine in the Aqueduct Turf Sprint last time out. He was second behind Nothing Better, who wired the field. He had a very good trip. He didn't change leads, but he faced a very good group. The 6th place horse in that race came back to place in 2 graded stakes races at Santa Anita, then won a stake in New York with a 97 Beyer speed figure. I like this horse's tactical speed. He handles a wet track.
You talk about the 8, then we go to the 1 to the inside, and Grooms All Business for Jorge Duarte Jr., Georgie Ruiz. This is one that you can have a little faith in on this type of track today.
Yeah, another horse that's going to have it tied on because he hasn't run since August. He returns as a new gelding. I didn't think he had the cleanest trip last time out in that race at Monmouth. Kind of bottled up in between horses, turning for home. He eventually got the seam, but then a horse came right over the top and beat him. Another horse, good tactical speed. Ruiz should try to find the pocket with him and maybe sit there and hope for some room in the stretch.
That's kind of what I'm hoping as well for Grooms All Business. The number 7, I love that you have this horse within your picks. Tim Salzman, Where's Ray, Martina Rojas, who gets run out of horses, excelled on the turf last time out in first try.
Now, this horse is just matured by leaps and bounds in his last 2 races. An open lengths win against bottom Maiden claimers at Laurel. They stepped him up into a first level allowance last time out. Easiest of winners for Where's Ray. He battled with the 6th place finisher who got very tired. Martina gets the most out of horses on the lead. We saw that with Shoshana yesterday at 22-1. Right to the front. That horse ran great Where's Ray's going to have to prove it, obviously, against tougher horses, tougher pace competition, but she'll be 20 to 1.
Why not? Take a stab a little bit, add a little bit of value, a little bit of price there. We're certainly going to get, but I like that you have that one to get to our attention. And Where's Ray for Tim Salzman and Martino Rojas. Now we have to discuss the number 11 Witty. Let's take a look back in the King T. Leatherberry for Liz Merriman. Tyler Gaffleone takes the call today.
And this is Witty. There are times when maybe he's not the smoothest out of the gate, but he has a potent stretch kick, and this is what's known as coming widest and fastest over the top of everybody. The big gray smokes him in the final 16th of a mile to score. He might not show that early speed here. He's going to need a little bit of a trip, of course, in a full field, but you can count on Witty to come up with a stretch run, and he's a popular local horse here. We all love him.
It's tough because you can easily give the argument saying, hey, this 5 furlongs, this horse is, too slow out of the gate, but he's done it before in the Ben's Cat at Pimlico last year. Not only that, he did it on a turf with a wet turf, so it's there. If you're trying to make an argument, so I go ahead and go with Witty on top as you have him underneath. Rightfully so. I love the prices that you go for here, Dan, in the 8-1 at 7-11 here in the Jim McKay Turf Sprint Stakes. Now let's go to the dinner party, and of course wanted to highlight that we have that first Grand 3 again. Now this, not only the dinner party is a part of a different type of pick'em challenge, and if you need, go to Preakness.com for more information, but this is the second, there's another secondary one, and the dinner party is one of them. So basically you need to get the efforts, just go for the first 4 here in the dinner party. You have a chance to win $2.5 million, of course. Let's get going though. 1 mile and 1/8 on the turf for the 3-year-olds and up. Dan, you go with the tone here for Mike Maker, Luis Saez.
This race took me a lot of time to handicap, and I'm still not sure if I want to just, throw a dart. I think all 4 of my horses I'd be using in multiple race wagers. A Tone is a horse that when he feels good in the morning and decides to run, he is capable of a big effort, as he did when he won the Pegasus World Cup Turf, a Grade 1 at Gulfstream. But that was early 2023, and that was his last win. I think 1 mile and 1/8 is his best surface, however, and I thought his most recent start, albeit on the synthetic, the Kentucky Cup Classic, was sort of a wake-up effort for him. He made a big 4-wide bid on the turn. He was game to get up for second. I'm going to give a Tone one more chance. He's just a seemingly hard trier, and you have to go all the way back in the PPs. 2021, his start on yielding turf, he wins.
Okay, there we have it. I love it. You go with the number 10 underneath as well. And this is an Emmanuel. You still keep Emmanuel up for Todd Pletcher, Irad Ortiz. You're not afraid of the soft turf today.
I am a little bit afraid because when I talked to Todd earlier this week, he seemed a little bit concerned. He does not think that wet ground works for Emmanuel, not necessarily because of the Maker's Mark Mile. Just consider the salty horses he was in against. Breeders' Cup Mile winner, Master of the Seas. The runner-up Naval Power comes back places in the Turf Classic at Churchill, 102 buyer. That race, the 4-star Dave, though, worries Todd. Good turf course, just didn't really seem to fire that day. I think he might be the most talented horse in this race. He's got great tactical speed. Demand value.
There we go. That's the way to go. That's the good way to word Emmanuel. The number 5 to the inside is going to be Running B. You're not going to. I don't think you're going to find as much value there in Running B for Chad Brown, Tyler Gaffleone, because this one just won an opener, kind of coming back from that Tampa effort, just to kind of get the confidence up, get something solid, but on a track with moisture.
A beautiful trip last time out to win at Keeneland, and that tactical speed is so valuable in any race, whether it be dirt or turf, form or soft. Running B is a horse that has a lot of upside potential. I won't be surprised if maybe today's the coming out party.
Why not? Absolutely. Let's talk about the number 3 really quick. In Balankov for Phil D'Amato, Frankie Dettori. This one, no stranger to this type of turf today.
He needs pace. He is a powerful late kicker, and if you give him pace, he's going to come with a strong kick. Think of Witty, but at a horse that runs at longer distances. His last race, the San Francisco, he fell behind early. He basically saved ground every step of the way, and he came with his usual late run. Sometimes he falls a little bit short. If you believe that he's going to get some pace today and is going to like this sort of turf course, you can use him at a price.
Why not? Absolutely. 410, 5-3. Love this prices that Dan stabs at here in the dinner party. And of course, we go to the next race, and that does kick off the jackpot. Super high 5. Carry over 26 grand, going to be on its way to 27, well up to 30 and over by the time we get to race number 3, which is the Grade 1 Preakness. That does also include the first Grand 3. I mentioned the dinner party is the turf portion. And again, Preakness Stakes, California Crown, Pegasus World Cup. If you can get all 4 finishers in those races in a row, $5 million is up for grabs. go to Preakness.com for more information. Let's get down to business, though. In our Grade 1 Preakness 149, of course, a mile and 3/16 on the dirt for the straight 3-year-olds, $2 million up for grabs. Let's take a look at your top selection. Catching Freedom, you and I both go with this one for Brad Cox and Flavian Proud.
Yeah, I had to redo the race after Muth scratched. I thought he would be very tough in here, but I like Catching Freedom. I thought his Kentucky Derby was a good effort. Flavian gave him a very nice ride. He was able to save ground, avoid a jam up, followed Mystic Dan into the stretch. He ran on at the end. He's the kind of horse I think needs a little bit of pace help. He might get it in here because I have a feeling that Just Steel might make Imagination run a bit going into the first turn. Brad Cox does very well with horses coming back 2 weeks or less. 6 for the last 20, 30%, positive ROI. And isn't that always the big story with Derby horses? Is it too stressful to come back in 2 weeks? Brad's done it very well. He's beaten Mystic Dan before. I think he can do it again today.
I've seen this horse all week, just out in morning training, looking phenomenal. I think that you look at the trip that he had in the Derby. He had the trip that I thought Sierra Leone was going to be getting in the Derby. Just had a lot of it was still relatively clean, had to fight his way, had to make his own spot up the rail. So I think he did a little bit more work than Mystic Dan. I like what I see, but let's get right to it. Speaking of Mystic Dan, let's go ahead and talk and look at, of course, that Kentucky Derby from last time out.
Mystic Dan down on the inside. Brian Hernandez, just a sensational ride. You cannot give him enough credit. He is going to make sure there's room. That's a tight, tight squeeze. Shoots on through. He still has a quarter of a mile to come. He still has closers that are getting the benefit of the pace. I know that, Brian gets a lot of the credit for this. This horse got a perfect trip. But you have to remember, Mystic Dan was close to a very fast pace. All the other pace setters are tiring badly. He's still staying on. And I think that's a credit to the horse, Mystic Dan, who has great tactical speed. And as we saw in the Southwest, this wet track, he's going to like it.
That's been the conversation of the week when talking about Mystic Dan. The connections, Robbie Alvarado and Ray, the assistant for Kenny McPeak, saying he is going to love this type of track here today like we saw in the Southwest. Let's talk about the number 8 in Tuscan Gold for Chad Brown. Tyler Gaffleone here, 8-1 on the morning line. I think this one might come down just a little bit.
Well, if you like patterns, this is the horse for you. Chad Brown's 2 Preakness winners are both making their 4th start in the Preakness. They both lost their prep before the Preakness. They both skipped the Kentucky Derby. Here's Tuscan Gold. 4th start, 3rd last time out in the Louisiana Derby, skips the Kentucky Derby, runs in the Preakness. He has a lot of upside potential. I think this horse does have talent.
No, I think, and as far as the wet track goes, even though Medaglia d'Oro, 14%, I think looking at this horse as an individual, I see him having no problem kind of skipping along this track. Kind of just he has that body type and movement where he could potentially just kind of float across that top portion of it. So the number 9 to the outside, Imagination. Of course, our structured speed here for Bob Baffert. Frankie Dettori takes the call.
Even though he has more seconds and thirds in his careers, I think he really wants to fight you, and I think he's a tough little cookie. I do believe that. His last race, the Santa Anita Derby, he was pushing the pace, and Stronghold's a very nice horse, and they fought all the way down to the wire. He finished ahead of 2 next-out winners in that race. One of them came back to win the Las Barrera in Santa Anita by 7 lengths with a 101 Buyer's speed figure. I think Frankie's going to try to put this horse on the lead. If Just Steel wants it, he'll try to sit off just like he did in the San Felipe. He's going to be in the thick of things when they turn into the stretch.
He will be, but you know what? I think that's exactly something that Imagination likes. This horse loves to fight. Don't play this horse off. I think this horse, regardless of where he's finishing, he is going to give us a wonderful show here. I think it's going to be a fun finish.
I think it's going to be a great show throughout for this Preakness. We got talented horses. The storyline, of course, Mystic Dan trying to keep the Triple Crown hopes alive, but some really good horses in here as well.
No, I'm so excited for Preakness 149. What a fantastic race that came up for that. And we're going to wrap things up just with a little soft allowance optional to kind of tie in for those who want to not quite deal with that traffic quite yet after the Preakness.
Or if you're going to be like me, you need one race to get out.
Exactly. There we have it. Let's see if we can give you a little something here in this mile and 16th effort on the dirt for the 3-year-olds and up. the number 2, Sheriff Ronnie, who you go with, because there is a scratch of the number 1 in Armando R. Jamie Ness, Michael Sanchez. This one is coming back. We've seen this horse win on an off track before.
Yeah, he's won 4 of his last 5 starts also, and his last race was very, very good. The horse he battled on the lead, Castle Island, looked like he was going to run right by Sheriff Ronnie. Sheriff Ronnie said no, and Castle Island came back and he won the opener yesterday. Sheriff Ronnie looks like the controlling speed for Jamie Ness. Michael Sanchez, I think it was right to the front.
Okay, there we have it. Talking about the number 7 to the outside is Union Fleet for Jose Magana. Andres Chavez takes the weight off, 5 pounds off here. Comes down from the Frank Whiteley to here. Good. This is a good spot for this one.
Underrated horse in very good form. Sharp winner, 2 starts back, beating a couple of next out winners. The Whiteley was the race we showed before with Coastal Mission and Prince of Jericho. This horse made a nice late run. I do wonder if he's more of a late running 1-turn horse than a 2-turn, but he's going to be a good price in here, and I think he'll run late again.
Let's talking about the number 6. It's Viper for Brittany and Sheldon Russell. This is one that we've kind of just been waiting for this horse to really kind of get back into the swing of things.
Another late runner that needs a little bit of pace and race luck to develop for him to do his best. Last time out, he kind of fell back. He came with his usual kick in the lane. He's an honest horse, and if this pace heats up, I could see it's Viper making a late run.
Let's talk about your last value that you give us here in the last. You had to give us one last one. 20-1 for Curlin's Malibu for Bill Atkins. Carlos Lopez gets the call here.
Well, why not? Curlin's Malibu won on a wet track 2 starts back, and he got a respectable speed figure. I know it was at Charlestown. The last race is a race you just draw a line through. What chance did he have at 150-1 in the Kentucky Cup Classic contested over a synthetic surface at Turfway Park? He's run a couple of interesting races to me, especially the one 5 starts back at 1 1/8 where he ran really well to be second. Listen, maybe this is too tough a spot, but the price will be right.
Absolutely. Price is all right. Price can always be right with you with some of your picks that you give. Of course, Dan Illman going 2-7-6-4, and I did want to announce a late change. The first race will be off the turf today. First race off the turf, and that is a race in that maiden special weight going 5 furlongs. So we have a field of, let me do the quick counting really quick, 10. We still have 10 horses in that field, but just keep an eye out for some, or 8 horses in that field, but keep an eye out for some more potential changes coming as we are off the turf in that first race.
Well, it's disappointing, but you know something? We're still going to save it for the stakes, hopefully.
I think that's exactly what the game plan is, so I'm not too concerned about it. Should we try and handicap this on air last minute?
Why not, Callie? That's
Why
what
not?
we're here
We've
for.
got a couple. We've got a couple minutes.
I don't mind Master of Malice, still my top selection in the race because he ran on dirt in his debut. I will say this, though. I do think Irish Heartbeat and Maximilian's Dream are interesting as well. Maximilian's Dream showed high speed in his debut and might have needed the race. But, you know, Irish Heartbeat, that figure earned on synthetic last time out. Okay. I think I'm leaning towards the 4 and the 6.
4 and the 6 there in the first race for Dan Illman as it is off the turf. Now, Dan, let's get to your best bet and your value play. And as I scroll on, your value play is in Cats by 5, hoping the race kind of sets up well for him in race 6.
That's really the key. He needs someone to go after Frost 5, that speed horse, because if they do, Cats by 5 is a horse that can come with a little bit of a kick in the stretch. 4-1 on the morning line. I don't want to take too much shorter than that, but I think that's a fair enough price.
Absolutely. Your best bet is in race number 10. This is Samantha Perry's single on her late pick 4, an Imperial Gun, 7-2 for Joel Rosario and Steve Asmussen.
I want Asmussen to have a nice day today.
Yes.
Imperial Gun, we showed the video. A lot of heart displayed in that Bathhouse Row Stakes at Oaklawn. Good enough tactical speed to get into the race with a clear face.
Into the race. I love that. Into the race, clear face. We're going to leave it to you guys for the rest of the afternoon, but our team will be on to give you all of the updates. Of course, remember, first race is off the turf, but that don't be perturbed by that. We're going to still have a fun, fantastic day here for Preakness 149. Dan, thank you so much for joining us, and you've done wonderful for us this weekend, as per usual.
Always a pleasure talking to you, Callie. We're going to have a tremendous Preakness. Good luck, everybody.
Winner of the Hilltop Award, Dan Illman. Next to me, we're going to go to Dave Rodman for some more changes and scratches for Preakness Day 149.